Starting this second part of this discussion of mammals, we move on to the order Monotremata. The Monotremata is the platypus and echinodina. So the order Monotremata is known as the egg-laying mammals. They're the only mammals that are oviparous. And so the duck-billed platypus and the echinodina are the only mammals that lay eggs. The echinodina is a spiny anteater that lives and hunts alone, and as the name implies, it primarily eats insects. The platypus lives on land and in the water. The bill is a soft bill that's used for digging, and as I said before, these mammals are distinguished by the fact that they are the only egg-laying mammal. The next group is the armadillos, sloths, and anteaters. This is the order Xenarthra. This is named for having extra joints that are not found in other animals. Arthra is a word, we get the word arthritis, means joint, and Xen just means abnormal or unusual or foreign to the other groups of mammals. The armadillo is well known to most people. The name means little armored one. It has the neat rows of plates that are tough and are its primary protection. The sloth is well known to most people because it's used in the Bible to illustrate laziness. A person is lazy, they're called a sloth. It lives in trees, hangs upside down in the trees, and it's distinguished by the fact it's the slowest moving mammal. The anteater is an important mammal. It is active during the day, which is somewhat unusual compared to most animals. And when you're active during the day, the term is diurnal. If you're only active at night, the term is nocturnal. And this is a picture over here on the right of a armadillo, which I think you've probably seen on television before. There's the famous pangolins. I'd never heard of pangolins until the COVID-19 outbreak. The pangolin was supposedly the repository of COVID-19 before it jumped to humans. This theory of pangolins being the etiology of COVID-19 has been pretty well debunked. This is the order Phyllodota. And the pangolin, as you can see, looks somewhat like an armadillo, but the plating is a little bit different, and the head and body structure is a little bit different. People actually eat these pangolins in Asia, which is another reason people thought that the source of COVID-19 could possibly be the pangolin. They're also known as the scaly anteater, and again, their name suggests what their primary food source is. The next group of animals are the pouched mammals. We've talked about this a little previously in the first video. They're marsupials, and the order is called Marsupialia. The marsupials are known because they have the abdominal pouch, or the marsupium, where the young develop. They actually crawl out onto the animal's fur and crawl down into the pouch and finish their gestation in the pouch of the mother. The kangaroo is the largest of these marsupials, and it turns out that the way they get around, which is to hop along, is actually the most energy efficient means of motion or moving that's known. It's much more efficient than, say, running, etc. The opossum, or possum, is the only marsupial that lives outside of Australia. All other marsupial types or species live in Australia. The possum is unique in the fact that it lives outside of Australia, and it has this unusual defense called playing dead. When it is threatened or approached by a predator, it will just flop over on its side and not move and pretend like it's dead. And many times the predator will become disinterested and walk away. The wombat, which is shown in the picture here, is known because of its efficient ability to dig. The one that everybody knows about is the cute little koala bear. The koala bear is interesting in the fact that it only eats, or it has a very finicky diet. It only eats certain buds and leaves, and it has to be from the eucalyptus tree. And so because of that, environmentally, the eucalyptus trees have to be protected so that the koala bear will have something to eat. And then it will drop down on the ground. It will lick the ground in order to add grit and bacteria to the diet, so to help break down the eucalyptus plants that it's eaten. And then the numbat, not to be confused with the wombat, is another anteater. And it is the only marsupial that actually will come out during the day. Then there's a large group known as the insect-eating mammals. This is the order Insectivora. No surprise there. Insectivora is eat. Omnivore means you eat everything. Herbivore means you eat plants, etc. So if you only eat insects, then you're an insectivore. Insectivores are insect eaters. One example is the shrew, pictured again on the right here. It has a mouse-like body structure, looks like a mouse. It eats. It's one of the smallest and lightest mammals, but for its size, it eats a tremendous amount of food in order to keep up with its metabolism. And then there's the hedgehog. The hedgehog is probably the insectivore that lives the longest. And when it is threatened, it'll roll up into a ball so that all you get is that sort of tough hair if you try to attack it. And then probably everybody at some time in their life has had to deal with moles in their yard. And a mole is an insectivore that lives underground. It has almost no eyesight or very poor eyesight, but then makes up for that with an excellent sense of smell and hearing, and gets around based on its sense of smell and hearing. The flying mammals, the order is Chiroptera, and we know the most common of these is the bat. And bats, they're very numerous, and they have over 1,000 species. It was an interesting thing in Kentucky. For a period of time, the bat population was actually at risk because of a fungus that was growing inside caves, and it was actually brought in by people visiting the caves. This fungus would get on the bat's face, and then it would grow and pretty much suffocate the bat. And when we went to the caves, the last time I went to the caves, we had to have our feet sprayed with this special solution that killed all the possible fungus that could be growing on our feet, so that to help protect the bats in Kentucky. Now bats use, as we all know, bats use something known as echolocation, and it's essentially a sonar that's used to locate prey and to navigate during flight, and it's extremely accurate. Bats are very good at locating and flying using their sonar. There's an interesting thing that you can do. There's a moth that is one of the bat's favorite meals, and it's developed a defense mechanism. When it hears the sonar, this is the moth, when it hears the sonar, it just folds up its wings and drops out of the sky, wherever it's flying. And if you can reproduce that sound, you can walk under a light pole or something, and these moths will be flying around, and you can reproduce that sound, and all of a sudden they drop out of the sky and drop down around you. And I've actually seen biology. I had a biology professor that could do that. Then there's a group of marine mammals. One group is called the cetacea. The cetacea are the whales. Pictured on the right here is the blue whale, which is the largest known mammal to have ever lived. The baleen whales as a group are the largest mammals on Earth, and they're called baleen because they have two rows of plates that strain seawater and strain out the food from the seawater, and that's how they get their food. And these whales eat huge amounts of food, so they have to strain enormous amounts of water in order to get the food they need. And as I said, this mammal you see over on the right is the blue whale, which is the largest of these whales. And then there are the whales with the teeth, the sperm whale, which is an interesting. I don't know how many of you all have read Moby Dick. You'll probably have to read Moby Dick at some point. And in Moby Dick, the whales they were hunting were sperm whales. And the whale is the source of a couple of different materials. One is called spermaceti. Spermaceti oil is used for lamps and cosmetics and perfumes. And Herman Melville, who wrote Moby Dick, actually spends an entire chapter talking about the different kinds of whales and the different things you can get from those whales. Probably one of the most boring chapters in the book. They also produce something called ambergris. Ambergris is used in perfume. Because of the whales being endangered, ambergris is not available in all countries. It's available in Japan, but not available in the United States. Another toothed marine mammal is a dolphin. Dolphins are known for their intellect, and they also use echolocation in the water, much like bats do when they're flying. And then the other toothed mammal is marine mammal is called a porpoise. Now, porpoise and dolphins are not the same. Dolphins have a beak. Porpoises do not. Flipper was a porpoise. Flipper was not a dolphin. And then the last of this group is the orca. And the orca is the killer whale. The killer whale is not a shark. It is a mammal, a whale, but it is extremely dangerous, and they hunt in pack. There are the tree-dwelling mammals. The tree-dwelling mammals, order of Primata, order primates, I think are very familiar to us. This is a picture of an ape that I don't think any of us would be surprised about that. Primates are generally arboreal, which means that they live in trees. They are intelligent, and they have what's known as opposable thumbs. Now, this is an exceedingly important adaptation that these primates have. Opposable thumbs allows you to grasp things. When you have an opposable thumb, you can grab something. When you don't have opposable thumbs, then your upper arm is far less useful. Apes are primates without tails, which makes monkeys primates with tails. And this gentleman here in the slide is the mountain gorilla, which is the largest of the primates, or of the apes. There's also something called a gibbon, which is the smallest of the apes. The orangutan, which I think you've probably seen on television, has orange hair and is a little bit different in the way it walks, and the length of its arms is quite remarkable. And then the chimpanzee, which is the most intelligent of this group, and probably the most intelligent of the apes. Now, as I said, monkeys are distinguished from apes in the fact that they do have tails, and their tails are important. Now, these New World monkeys live in the rainforest. They have wide nostrils from which to breathe, and they have what's called a prehensile tail. A prehensile tail can actually grasp objects, much like a hand. The Old World monkeys have closed nostrils and no prehensile tail. So you have the New World and the Old World. And I have a picture here in just a second where we can look at the difference. There are also the lemurs, which live in Madagascar. So let's look at the difference. You have the New World, which is on the left, and the Old World, which is on the right. And the New World have a certain structure of their nose, and they all have tails. The New World have prehensile tails. The Old World do not.